I'm Sonia Nagpal. I'm the founder of DissDash, and it's our privilege today to host such amazing people.
We are entering a third type of content era, which is neither long nor short. It's the sycophant AI, do you want this as well era. It's a personalized content era.
I think 5 years ago we thought television was dead. Everybody's going to watch everything on their phone. Do you know that last year, for the first time, more people watched YouTube on their connected TV than they did on the mobile devices?
OpenAI yesterday bought TBPN. It's a podcast live show daily hosted by two guys who started 1 year ago. They were probably paid somewhere between $80 to $300 million.
Have you seen Dhurandhar, by the way? Aditya Dhar. He's made it for an audience who has zero attention span. But yet, I'm very sure most of us have all gone to see it. We've sat there for 4 hours to see it.
Cinema is always evolving. We are no longer going to accept what we've been getting. I think Yash Raj Films and their whole spy universe is going to be thinking big time. Can I feed audiences what I have been feeding them before?
Don't get so caught up in the algorithm game, because at the end of the day, the boss is the viewer.
Bollywood is notorious for presenting sick characters as funny characters. So I really took it upon myself.
Yoga is a tragedy. It's been stripped of all its spiritual significance and it's been reduced to downward dog. And chai has been made into chai tea latte. Please fuck out of here with that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to start off by thanking everyone for coming on a Friday afternoon. Who would have thought, right? A room full of people here to support all these amazing people today. I'm really overwhelmed with everyone being here, and thank you again so much. Really, it's such a dynamic room filled with people who care about storytelling, people who care about media and the evolution of how our voices are basically shared and narrated. They say media doesn't just reflect culture, it defines it. And in a world where attention and currency and authenticity is often being tested, the question becomes, well, who gets to tell the stories, who consumes it, how, and why? So this panel today brings together voices across platforms, television, digital, podcast, scholastic, each with a unique lens, but a shared impact. And what makes this conversation exciting is that really there are no right answers. We each have our own perspectives. And today I want them to just talk openly. There's no structure here. It's an open conversation. Expect real talk, different opinions, and hopefully a few moments that make you think differently about the content you consume and create. So let's get right into it. I'd like to start with each of the panelists to please take a quick minute to introduce themselves, give a short and sweet summary for anyone that may not know them. I'll start with myself really quick. I'm Sonia Nagpal. I'm the founder of DissDash, and it's our privilege today to host such amazing people. So I'm going to start off with my friend over here, who's all the way from India, Prakhar Gupta.
Well, I never feel like I'm all the way from India when I'm here. It's a very weird feeling. There's so many Indians here, I don't see them in India as often. My name is Prakhar Gupta. I run a podcast called The Prakhar Gupta Experience. Podcasting is a very narcissistic exercise because you hear yourself talk, so you name it after yourself sometimes. My thesis is very simple. I like to do conversations that either help people switch off and just relax or learn as much as they can when they're listening to it. I spent about 7 years in New York, so I was a student here once, I worked here once, and it's very interesting to return to speak to people who are students and workers and citizens of this city. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Sonia. I'm actually honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, I think I'm the only person here from Canada. So my name is Raj Girn, and I'm the founder of Anokhi. Anokhi launched in 2002, and since then we've had many iterations of our community has consistently been changing. The big thing for us was to tell stories that weren't being told. At that time, my work was around getting our celebrities from India and from this country and from the West on our covers, so that we could really showcase them and focus on that. Today, my story is about putting everyday people who are doing big things on our covers. Because that is the piece now I feel is kind of the next big move for us. We have annual award shows, galas that we have everyone from Priyanka Chopra to Freedom Pinto to, oh my God, Robin Sharma, so many different people attend. We have our 25th anniversary coming up next year, Sonia, which I am very much looking forward to, because what it tells me is that there is relevance in the story of our community, and there is relevance in the, way that we tell our stories and accept each other. Because now when I look around, I see so many people who are proud to be
South Asian, but when I was starting, everybody used to hide. They did not want to wear their clothes. They did not want to smell of curry. And now today, everyone is loud and proud and, standing out there and saying, this is who I am, so just accept me. And that really makes me feel so proud that the journey has been there. I also am the founder of the Open Chest Confidence Academy, which is a women's confidence academy to help support them. Because I found in all the years that I've worked with so many women on the highest levels across multiple industries, the number one thing that has held them back to doing greatness in their lives has been their own perception of themselves. So that's the other thing I do. I also am the owner of a med spa. That's a whole other conversation. I'm really 100, by the way. And I also do real estate, a lot of real estate actually, in Canada, Mexico, and in the Middle East with my son, who's a developer. And, wow, I don't know how many other things I do, but I think that's all I can put out there right now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today. Sonia, a big thank you to you who have collectively got everybody here today. So thank you very much for this. My name is Anushka Arora, and I am from London. Just moved to New York last year. I am a TV presenter, radio presenter, live events host, voiceover artist, and my main market for the last 19 years has been entertainment and Bollywood. So if you listen to, and I've just started my own podcast as well. So if you listen to any of my stuff, it's all very Bollywood, it's all very Bollywood news, Bollywood heavy, music, movie reviews. So that's what I have been doing over the last 19 years. And here I am in New York, doing the same. And of course, I am freelancing with AVSTV as well, Raju, who will talk about that a little bit later on as well. So thank you very much.
Okay. What an international panel. So I also am from really far away, about 20 blocks east from here. So I walked here. So I am a real New Yorker. Maybe there's like 2 real New Yorkers here?
Not me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm the only real New Yorker on the panel, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Prakhar Gupta. I am a media executive and a media professor at Columbia Business School. I've worked in television for about 20 years. I've worked for brands like BET Cable Networks, BET Plus, Paramount Plus, Pluto TV, and currently work for a broadcasting company that owns your local broadcast affiliates. I'm obsessed with television, so I teach a class of it. It's the only class at an Ivy League that's only about television. It's called The Business of Television and Streaming. It's a 3.5-hour class, 1 semester a year, and it's a lecture, case debate, and then I always have some speakers. I've had people that you probably haven't heard of, like LL Cool J, Gayle King, the CFO of NBC, the CFO of Warner Brothers. I've had 2 Real Housewives of New York, including Jessel, and the class went wild when she arrived. And this year I had Seema Modi from CNBC, and I ended my season, I don't call them semesters, I call them seasons. I ended my season with the CEO of Tubi, who's also a South Asian female, Anjali Sud. So I opened my semester with a South Asian female and ended one. And nobody thanked me or noticed, but we'll get to that later. So I'm really happy to be here. In the background, I do think we need better representation of our community behind the screen and on the screen. So I'm always working to help the next generation enter the industry, learn more about the industry, and figure out where they fit. I think I made a list yesterday of all the different stories that have been told on television that make us look a certain way, and I think we need to continue to improve that. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hello everyone, my name is Jasmine and I moved from India 10 years ago. I started my media company and my podcast called the Rising Immigrants around 2.5 years ago, and the reason for doing that was I didn't see enough people who looked like me, my dad, my kids on media, anywhere. And the characters I saw online, like Bollywood is notorious for presenting sick characters as funny characters. So I really took it upon myself and I felt like I had this responsibility to shape that narrative. And someone who's worked in the media space many years ago, I was into Punjabi film industry, I acted in a film which was released in 2016 and did a TV show where I hosted singers, songwriters, musicians, lyricists in Canada and in the US. I felt like I had to go back and reshape the narrative about immigrants and our stories, because there's no one else who can tell our stories better than we can. Because there are so many cultural nuances that mainstream media, even if they attempt to, they won't be able to get. And there's not enough scale in it. So here I am, right in front of you guys. Thank you so much, Sonia, for inviting us tonight. It's such an honor to sit with all these people who inspire me constantly and their journeys. So I'm glad to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Raju Sethi, the founder of AVSTV. Thank you, Sonia, for having me join this wonderful group. So we started AVS back in 1987. I know that ages me, but we started at a time when there really wasn't any television, and the little that was there was, let's just say, just kind of there once a week, and not very quality, not very, up to the mark that we would like to see. And being a young South Asian here, I remember watching it and saying, you know what? I know we are better than this, because when we watch American shows, when we watch American television, why can't we produce things like that? I understand Bollywood is Bollywood. We're still going to have the dancing around trees, but we grew up on that. But at the same time, we wanted to create a show, we wanted to create entertainment that presents Bollywood in a more sophisticated manner, in a more enjoyable manner, and I think a lot of people grew up watching that, so that's how actually it started. But along the way, we also said, hey, we have now a platform. Where do people who are singers, actors, people in the arts, where do they go? Because the mainstream American people aren't going to give them a chance. So we used our platform, we would bring them on, people like Apache Indian, people like Bali Sagoo, so many. Even Indian artists from India would come over here specifically to reach the audience. And we've been doing this now, almost 40 years. And we've, luckily, what started out as a local show in New Jersey grew to something that was syndicated all over the world. We entered digital, we have our own Roku channel, we've entered the social media space, so we're still there, Bollywood is still there, but we're trying to present it in a more, dignified manner from the sensibility of people who live here. Bollywood is still Bollywood. We're going to love it, we're going to hate it, but it's ingrained in us. So it's a part of our culture, and I'm just happy that I've been blessed to do something that I love for the last so many years and continue to do so. So Sonia, thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to engaging with everyone.
What Raju left out is that AVS TV right now is the first South Asian show to be streamed on mainstream American Pix 11.
Well, one of the good things that has happened over the years, thank you for pointing that out, Sonia, is that a lot of non-South Asians have started appreciating Bollywood, has started appreciating Indian culture. And surprisingly, when we started, we did it just for our own community. But I remember I was still in high school when I started. And I would go into school, and the first thing people would say is, wait a minute, I thought India was just poverty and cows roaming the streets. What is all this? You guys have fancy cars, you have fancy all this, and I see, what is all this? I said, we have a thriving community, we have a thriving film industry, and even from then till now, India is still the largest producer of cinema. If you combine all the languages, we're still the largest producer of cinema. And so, it's just amazing that I would walk into places and people would be like, hey, I've seen your show. I love this song. I'm like, do you understand it? No, but I love the beat. So it's now even on Pix 11, when we get the Nielsen ratings, it's just amazing that on a Saturday morning, 10:30, we're still attracting about 300,000 people watching. And you know, and I would say at least 16% of them are non-South Asians. So there's something to be said about our culture. So thank you.
Guys, just so you have an understanding of how TV ratings work, 300,000 is a huge number. Like on a cable network in prime time of a show that you've heard of, it might have 300,000 viewers that are live. So, wow, congrats. Now I understand why you never invited me on your show.
Hi everyone, I think that leaves me. I'm Simi Shah. I am the founder and CEO of South Asian Trailblazers. We are a media platform, community, and agency dedicated to elevating leading South Asians. And the mission is really rooted in this idea that you can't really be what you can't see. Our community absolutely stands on the shoulder of giants, many of whom are on this panel today. And we just want to create access for young rising stars in our community to understand how they can get to where incredible leaders in our community are today. I have been very privileged to live many lives in a short period. I started my career in finance. I pivoted to the world of startups. I graduated from business school last May, and now I'm back in New York. Hopefully you've heard of our flagship podcast, Trailblazers, where we've been privileged to feature comedians to congressmen, founders to Fortune 500 CEOs. And I'm just so honored to be here today. I think New York City, we're very lucky that we have such a thriving and robust South Asian community, but I don't think anyone has ever put together a panel with so many stars in the media landscape. So thank you, Sonia and DissDash, and thank you all. It's such an honor to be here.
So with that said, let's get started. I want to start broad first. Storytelling has evolved dramatically over many years now through various platforms. How do each one of you think storytelling itself has changed in the last few years? Not just the format, but the way audiences engage and consume it. And then short form content is also dominating attention, but long format is still playing a bigger, deeper loyalty. What are your thoughts on that?
Let me see if I understand the question properly. So there's short form, long form, that's one part of the question. And the other is how has storytelling evolved? I think the fundamental idea there is that the medium dictates how media operates. And so now, where most of the consumption happens on social, the way storytelling's evolved is that I need to scream for the first 3 seconds to get your attention, and then I can tell you whatever I can. And I mean that as a joke, but that's literally true. You front load most of your story ahead of time. If cinema that was being made 20 years ago, you could have a slow burn. You could have people sit for an hour and a half, enjoy the music, enjoy the dancing, whatever they might want to enjoy, and the story could conclude in its own time. But that's just not how it works anymore. Netflix executives are on record saying that we have to reinstate the plot of the story every so many minutes so that people remain. And frankly, as somebody who does conversational storytelling with people, I know when it's been 30 seconds without a spike. I can tell, like you build that instinct in the back of your head, you're like, I need to throw in something here for people to remain attentive. And some of the most beautiful lessons on how storytelling evolves, when I was a student back in India, the teachers I would study with would have thousands of kids. Like it would be literally thousands of kids laid out in a banquet hall somewhere in Delhi. Winter mornings, these kids are sleepy, it's 6 a.m., it's a foggy winter morning outside. Nobody wants to study accounts or finance. And these guys had mastered the art of holding your attention. Funnily enough, this is pre-social media. This is 2014-15 when content had not taken off in the way it has now. They were right. They had something in their mind. Students are the hardest captive audiences you have because they just do not want to pay attention. They'd much rather do n number of other things. And so I think the medium's evolved and the medium demands attention spikes because the competition for content is so much. There's so many pieces being put out every day. And for you to remain in somebody's feed, you've got to get their attention in the first 3 seconds. My wife, who's a painter, often talks to me about how she can get her painting reels to work. And I keep telling her content is different from art. It's no longer the same thing. There was an era where you could be a hobby creator and express what's inside of you with passion and people would pay attention. Now is not that time. Now it's a structured game. Now it's an economics. As for short form and long form is concerned, they coexist. My livelihood is long form content. Short form gets me the most amount of reach. These numbers are completely disbalanced. Maybe the effective ratio would be 1:10, if not 1:20. So like for every 20 views in short form, I get 1 view in long form. But if I meet any of you here, you would have seen me in a short form video, but you recognize me from my long form content. And so it's a funnel of sorts. The deeper you get into the funnel, the more recognition you and I build, the more influence an influencer builds, or brand equity a creator builds, however you want to state it. And so these are non-competitive even. I think they're fine. Like, both of them can coexist. I do think there is a serious atrophy in attention spans and cognitive abilities that we'll find out further as AI scales and all of this happens. But yeah, that's where we are. And I think we are entering a third type of content era, which is neither long nor short. It's the sycophant AI, do you want this as well era. It's a personalized content era where I no longer need to see a video to learn something. I could just throw a very personal query out to a chatbot and it's going to respond to me in my time. And if you guys look up what apps you are using and spending your time on, you'll find ChatGPT, Perplexity, and one of these apps really high up now. And that means it's competing not just with your Google search, but it's competing with Instagram, and it's competing with YouTube, and it's competing with television, and it's competing with cinema. And so that's where we're at. There's a third form of content, this new alien that's entered our midst, and that's artificial intelligence. And wait till it stops being just text. Because eventually it'll talk to me. It has to. There is no way prompting will remain this alpha for a very long time. The companies are incentivized to make it so simple that even if I blink, the AI knows what I want. And with enough neural patterns, it will figure out what I want. So I think that's where we're at. I think that's the story of storytelling. And yeah, it's beautiful.
I think you said it really well, that you need to grab an audience's attention for the first 3 seconds. It's really important. As a content creator, you know that if you don't get your hook right, there's very few chances that you'll actually get the audience to say. But I just want to add something to that. Sustainability depends on depth. I disagree to a certain extent, because you can get that audience, and absolutely, this is the world we live in. We need to get their attention. We're playing with really, really short spans, and it has, media, social media platforms, internet, access to information has really reduced our attention spans. But what will really stick, and that's what I believe in, is sustainability and depth of content. Like, do you stay true to who you are as a person, as a content creator, how authentic you are, your storytelling is, and are you able to highlight the nuances of the work? Right? Like, if you are into conversational storytelling, right? You're speaking to a celebrity. The truth of the world we live in today is that a celebrity's small moment will always get more hits and likes than a true, real story where you talk to a person who's risen from nothing and has reached a level of success, might not be a celebrity's level of success, but able to earn a livelihood. Absolutely 100% yes. But for the audience to, I feel like, associate with you and relate with you as a credible source of information or storytelling, there needs to be authenticity and depth in the work. So as it has evolved, as formats, media has constantly, it's changed at a faster pace that any of us can ever imagine, but there's still credibility in investigative journalism, there's still credibility in depth of work.
No, 100%. As a matter of fact, I think journalism is going to have a moment again, because with AI, nothing is verifiable, and now you need somebody to verify something again. And so that's going to happen. The way I would phrase what you just said is that you can't just have a hook, you need a payoff too. So if you make a promise in the first 3 seconds, and again, that's a metaphor, right? You have to deliver at the end, otherwise you lose your customer once. You will not get them again. It's no longer social media, by the way. That's the wrong word for it. You no longer see content from people you follow or subscribe. That doesn't happen. People call it interest media. At this point, it's algorithm media. What algorithm are you in? And so if one swipe is done, that's it. That's it. There's enough content to replace you. So you're right.
Raju, I know.
Thank you. Both of you guys have made excellent points. I just want to add to that. We all need to pay attention to the content that we are making, right? Like you rightfully said, it's the depth, it's the quality of content that you create. The 3-minute or 1-minute or 30-second reels that we make are here today, gone tomorrow. 5 years ago, this never existed. And 10 years, or maybe 5 years, or maybe 2 years from now, even that won't exist. But that long-form quality content that you've made will still be there. There will be a new platform out that you can put that content on, right? So we always, when we're creating something today, we need to think long term. We don't need to think short term. And you rightfully said, the short term is just meant as a promotional tool for that long term. It's to me to get you to say, oh, I gotta watch this. because I may not be able to reach you with a 40-minute podcast or a 30-minute show. But that 2-minute or 30-second promo that I make, I'll get you to watch. But again, that's today. We gotta see what's gonna happen 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. So I can still today sell my Shah Rukh Khan interview that I did 20 years ago. That gets me more money than the one I do today. Why? Because people wanna see that. That was content, knowing what he was like back then, what he did, all that, there is value for that. So because of television, we didn't have short form. I never made a 3-minute video. I made a full half-hour video. So it helps me even today. So that's why I think in that respect, we gotta always keep that in mind, that we're not thinking for today, we gotta think about tomorrow as well.
So I'll double click on that, and I was about to make the same point. So how we frame it is that we no longer should be platform centric, we need to be story and story centric. So when you sit down, you can't say, I'm going to create a podcast or an Instagram video. You're going to think about the entire story. You actually need to film or produce that entire piece, even if it's for YouTube, because actually you make most of your money. And immediately now you need to then reformat it or cut it vertically and horizontally for TikTok, for Instagram, and for Facebook, right? And sometimes those are just marketing opportunities. Those of you that potentially hit a certain threshold are making lots of money on those platforms, but it's very difficult, right? And more people are actually making money on Facebook now than we thought. So I think the story needs to be told for all of its different mediums, but in theory, you want to use those shorter mediums to send people to the YouTube episode or to the full podcast or to the show that's streaming on an AVOD platform or an SVOD platform, because that's actually where you're making your money. But yes, your interview from years ago is a perfect example, is that you've created this story-centric piece that's still monetizable today, right? You weren't thinking of a short Instagram interview, you have a longer interview that you can then cut up whenever you need to. So not platform-centric, we're story-first centric. And then let's take a step back. I think 5 years ago we thought television was dead. Everybody's going to watch everything on their phone. No one's going to buy TVs anymore. Do you know that last year, for the first time, more people watched YouTube on their connected TV in their living room than they did on the mobile devices? And YouTube and Google have been pushing for this for years. So more people are, I know maybe a lot of you are watching YouTube on your phone. More people are watching YouTube on their big screen TVs. And YouTube makes more money the longer you engage with YouTube. So they've been pushing all the publishers, we call them publishers, anyone that creates content, to create longer form content. And if you're not creating longer form content, they want Simi then to stitch her different podcasts together, right? Because what happens is when one of her interviews ends, YouTube is so smart, it doesn't send them to another trailblazer, which it should. It then figures out what else it's going to engage with and puts you into something else, right? Which doesn't benefit any of us. And so for a year or two, they were asking people they wanted people to have content that was 30, 60, 90, 2 hours long. They've kind of brought that back with the new algorithm. But more and more people are watching TV than ever. It may not be broadcast or cable, it's definitely streaming. 50% of America are streaming only households. So they are Netflix only or Tubi or Pluto, etc. And I think that just needs to, we need that context as we think about our stories.
Raj, I know you evolved from a magazine, print back then. How has your journey been?
It's really interesting because, I have been in the media space since 2000. I started in broadcast, went specifically into print because I felt that our stories weren't being identified and explained and the perspectives weren't there when you watched it on broadcast. I feel that the fundamental thing that I've noticed is that certain things never change, and that is the human emotionality around storytelling, right? The other thing that I feel that I found hasn't changed, because now we're also online, we're in social media, we have a huge newsletter community, believe it or not. People want to read newsletters. And we just keep growing in that space. And the reason why we stopped printing is because without doing any work, people just kept coming to us online. So it just made sense, and it just wasn't feasible anymore to have a print magazine. But the interesting thing is, now in Canada, I don't know what the case is here, in Canada, the government is looking at giving grants to bring people like me back into print format. And the reason for that is, it's kind of like a marketing thing. As you all have said, that little thing is what, gives people an idea of who you are. But it's the long thing that creates authentic trust. And it's the trust piece that you can never give away to. So I agree with everything that everybody is saying on this panel. The only thing I'd want to add here is, don't get so caught up in the algorithm game, because at the end of the day, the boss is the viewer, is the reader, is the person that's consuming the content. And if you live on one platform, that's a very scary place to be. And I've learned that the hard way, because algorithms determine how they're going to make money. These platforms determine how they're going to make money. You are going to make money if you are staying true and authentic to the way that you tell your stories. And is it doing one of three things? One is it useful? Like knowledge-based, right? Is it emotionally capturing people? And then the third thing is it affirming identity? Do I feel like I'm being seen with what you're talking about? So in these years that I've been on every platform, whether it's been live events, whether it's been print formats, whether it's been podcasts, I have 2 podcasts as well that I do, it's the long form that I get paid for, not the short form. The short form, so that's the other thing I want to mention, the short form is kind of like, I'm a marketing person, so short form for me is, it's kind of like the lead. You get a lead through short form. The long form is like a sales page, right? A person read it and decide whether they want to purchase that thing. And it's not always about whether my audience is paying me. I look at who has the money that can pay me. So I do deals with still the same thing as I used to do in print or in the awards shows and things I do. I go to people that have the money. And I tell them that I have an audience that is being seen with what I do. And I feel that piece also needs to be tagged in, because we're also caught up in the algorithms and everything, and we forget that at the end of the day, it's the audience that determines whether you're successful, but it's the people with the money that pay you.
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of interject with that. You recently had a podcast about 4 months ago talking about authenticity. And then also, who's kind of defining what you're getting paid and how you are making a switch.
Look, I think the sentiment that's being echoed by a lot of people who've been in the industry probably longer than I can imagine in certain ways, they're all right. There is a gamification that is possible if you understand the platform and the format. You can structure your content in a way that gives you better odds, but it does erode on the layer of trust and honesty that you could build. And it's an interesting insight because it will never show up on your dashboard. You will never have trust as a metric that you can measure on your dashboard. What you will have is views, subscribers, and all those sort of vanity things. Those metrics are not without virtue, and I'll speak to that in just a second. But I did find that it's very funny how podcasting evolved differently in America and in India. In America, it was spearheaded largely by Joe Rogan, and he's a very unique character. I can speak for hours about how unique he is, largely because now having been part of the ecosystem, the incentive to not be him is so high. The pressures to not be him is so high. Just take a deal. You can choose to not talk about this. And the man just puts himself through fire day in, day out for nothing except a whim, that he just wants to be himself. And I think it comes from the fact that he started at a different time. He started later in life. He was an established comedian. In India, all of us podcasters are first-time careerists. This is our first career. We're building ourselves up. We have very few options. We have to take certain deals, and we have to work with a certain market ecosystem that's built a certain way. And people who've worked in Indian media for a long enough time understand how Indian media is kind of different from American media. So there is something to be said about sort of re-adding the lost virtue of honesty in media. And I think that's a very fair thing to sort of talk about. But I'll tell you, there is a brutal pragmatism to media. There is a brutality to how the game works. And if your intention is to, let's say, play the game, as is mine, then you have to value the numbers as much as you value the invisible trust that you're building. Because if I did not have the numbers and if I had trust with 10,000 people, I probably will not be sitting here. You know what I'm saying? And all the people who do have trust, because these, as a definition, will have a larger trust than a massy sort of product. They all want numbers. Who are we joking with? They all do want the algorithm anxiety. Everybody's algorithmic anxious, right? And so it's better you figure it out and you play both ends. Where you understand, listen, there is a part of this, that's the game. And that's how at least I've switched over. So what Ansh and Ansh is sitting right here, Ansh manages a lot of my content. I like to phrase as the brains behind the operations, because I tend to be generally stupid about stuff. The way we've sort of decided is, we said, okay, this need to do art is interfering in the requirement to run a business, right? And those two things have to coexist. So we just silently in the back end said, we'll have two channels. One where I can actually do what I want, for which I take these flights and fly out here. I know I'm going to get no views on that. I don't know how many people will be interested. Sometimes you're surprised. Sometimes a lot of people are. Mostly it's a very dead adventure for me. Very little money to be made on top of it and so on. But I know if I play that game 5 years, it'll be amazing. You guys will never forget my name, because I'll do so well at that. But it requires 5 years of no pressure from the algorithm. It requires 5 years of me paying the cost out of pocket. It requires 5 years of me to take all the heat for this not working, and all the doubt, and all the, will this do well or will this not, and all these sleepless nights I have on the flights when I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, right? But for those 5 years, I have to be pragmatic. People's salaries have to go out. The company has to work. I still have to be on these panels and I meet all these cool people. And so we just decided, okay, you know what? One of them, we call it the game channel. We play the game there. We don't complain. We don't try to be moral about a pragmatic situation. And then on the other side, I call it the voice channel. I say what I want to say and I talk to the people I want to talk to, and we'll see where it goes. So that's how sort of we decided to fragment the requirement for vanity as well as meaning in this grand media matrix. Because the truth of the matter is, the puppeteers are the platforms. And whether somebody likes to admit it or not, the macro trends are platform-centric. Like, I do agree, story-centric is much more heartful. I'm gambling my career on story-centric. But the truth of the matter is, for a 27-year-old Prakhar who started doing this, who wanted to make a name for himself, who wanted to have a business to run, who wanted to make his father proud, I got to pay my respect to the numbers. It's just how it is. And we've tried that. We've gambled with it 6 months ago. I just did voice content on my game channel, and we saw how brutally it hit the phone calls we were receiving. Nobody was willing to call us. Nobody. There was more attention on commentary about me not getting views than the views we were making on some of the most fantastic podcasts I'd ever recorded, right? And it was just a brutal reality check on how this happens. And I was speaking to one of my mentors, and he said, in business, you cannot be entitled. It's just that. That made me so empathetic to every Bollywood actor I grew up disliking, because I was like, I get it now. I get why you have to do this. So you can do that one other thing on the side that you're proud of. Right? I get how this kind of works for people.
I want to just pick up quickly before you... yes.
Everyone needs to stop thinking that this is a non-profit business. Like, everyone comes up to me and thinks that the media business should not make any money, and we're doing some sort of community service and bringing stories to life. And I'm kind of tired of it, because people don't understand the economics of how this works, and they're like, why don't you make more documentaries? Why don't you tell more stories about our community? And then when we do it, not you, these communities don't watch it. Oh, no, but we want more, but you didn't watch it last time, and we only make money off the numbers. So absolutely, I said story-centric, but numbers are everything, and if it's not profitable...
I got to say something here.
But these big companies can't stay in business, right?
So
and people
I agree.
get so upset that why is Warner Brothers merging with Paramount, or why are the Ellisons buying Paramount, or why are these companies may not exist in a couple years, and I don't think people understand how little cash is being generated or how much cash is sitting on the balance sheet. Yes, you're seeing the shows and movies that continue to come out, but this game now, with the transformation of the industry, some of these brands will not exist in 3 to 5 years.
So I just want to add to that by saying that numbers do matter, but not always. So I beg to differ. And the reason for that is that there is something called quality. So that you'll have people, influencers out there, they'll have like 1 million followers and they'll put content out there, but nobody wants to pay the money for it. And many clients who are under 10K on Instagram are making 7 figures. So I think it depends on the nuance. And like I said, there's 3 things to look at. Is your content useful? Right? Does it speak to emotion? Are you consistent with this? And even with less than 10, you can make 7 figures, because I have clients that do that. I have clients also, because I'm talking about people who are content creators, not the big companies, I get that, but people who are content creators, right? Like I loved what you said at the beginning, that it was important to you to not tell the South Asian story, but to tell the real story of the Sikh diaspora. There's a nuance in that. Right? So there will be companies out there that will want to buy you and pay you, right? Irrespective of the fact of whether you have 10,000 subscribers or whether you have 1 million. Because I'll tell you why. I have a marketing company. That's what they do. It's a reality.
But the KPI there, the KPI for these, we call them micro-influencers, less than 10,000. And yes, they're very valuable because the engagement must be so high. And the followers that they have are very high quality, so yes, people will pay for that. But again, the numbers matter, not the number of followers, but they're looking at the other different KPIs that make it valuable. So that's...
You can't get stuck in the numbers, guys. The reason is if you are a true storyteller, you have to be nuanced and authentic to who you are, right? There is enough money out there for you to get a piece of that pie. Now, if you want to be a Warner Brothers and swallow up 75 different companies in the world, you can do that. But at the end of the day, the boss is not the big companies that it used to be back in the day. The boss is you and me.
I think, it's a good panel when there's debate. That's all I'm going to say. I think things can be true, and I think that's the inherent tension we're seeing here. When I introduced myself in South Asian Trailblazers, I said we are a media platform and a community and an agency. And I think the reality is it's what game you choose to play. Prakhar, you and I had a conversation about this many months ago of the economics have mentally changed, and if you want to play the long game of I want to be one of the top 50 podcasts or TV shows or whatever it is in the world, yeah, you got to chase the numbers and you got to chase the economics. For me, yes, that is one of the games I'm playing, but I've also decided that I want to support South Asian leaders and diverse leaders, so I've launched an agency. I'm extremely bullish on IRL connection. The fact that you are all sitting here today is proof of that. That's why we have a community. I think in a world where we're increasingly going to question what we're seeing online and whether it's real, people are going to continue to value being live with someone and knowing that they are real and having a real human interaction. And so I think all of this comes down to what are you building, what game you choose to play, whether you decide that you want to commoditize your passions or do this for fun. Because the reality also is that every company is a media company. Every person works in media, right? You all have a mic, you all have a video camera at your hands. OpenAI yesterday bought TBPN. It's a podcast live show daily hosted by 2 guys who started 1 year ago. They were probably paid somewhere between $80 to $300 million. Okay, and they don't have that big of an audience, right? And now one of the biggest AI companies in the world that's behind ChatGPT owns them, right? And so I think the point here that I'm making is the platforms are gonna win, the audience you still have to cater to, because if you don't have views, it's not gonna work, but you gotta choose what game you're playing, and that's why both of these things can fundamentally be true.
The base of all of this is that quality and authenticity is the first thing that must be true. And that's why this industry is so difficult. Spike Lee said that television or streaming is the most powerful art form in the world. More powerful than movies, music, etc., right? This is Spike Lee saying it, so let's just go with it. And if you want to have and tell your stories in these mediums, of course you have to have the quality, authenticity, but then the numbers do matter. We can tell all the stories we want to the 6 people here, but I think we want these stories to be broader, make money, scale, and if you want those stories to scale, yes, they have to be quality, but then we got to look at how to scale those numbers. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just
Not everybody wants a scale. That's true.
Can I just now, okay, so I come from a radio background now. I used to do a 4-hour radio show every day, Monday to Friday. So that included figuring out what music to play, which songs people want to listen to, what am I talking about. Yes, it's a commercial radio station, so there's a lot of commercials, there's a lot of adverts, there's a lot of sponsorships going on. But yet still, for 4 hours, I had to think every day, how am I going to hold that person's attention or that many people's attention? Like, how am I going to do it? So I think in that sense, a 4-hour radio show coming from a radio background, it's obviously very different to podcasting, but I don't think I overthought it so much like back in the day. And I think today we really overthink too much, like algorithms and what am I putting out and what time am I posting. Like I still think I'm like, oh my God, this is not the normal time that I post. Is it still going to get views? Back in the day, I didn't really care. I'm like, who cares? I'm just going to post it. And this is when social media was just newly coming out. I'm just going to, upload it onto YouTube. Like, who's going to watch it? I don't know. I don't care. But I just think as creators and influencers and as media people, I just think we really overthink it too much. And I think we just need to stop doing that. And that's where the authentication comes from. And that's where we do things organically. And I think as long as you're enjoying what you do, and I think just not caring, like I just think we need to stop doing that and enjoy things more rather than chasing numbers. And I know it is a numbers game. I do understand that, but I just feel sometimes we need to take a back seat from that, I feel.
See, it's a little... Isn't it great when you create that good content that comes organically and you get the numbers?
Yes. The deal is much sweeter. If somebody was to buy me, the deal is much sweeter if I had 1 million followers. Authenticity, and you need to build audience trust.
Actually, I will disagree on that last bit. It's actually not the case, and this has gotten super weird. Because you guys cannot talk about social or internet media as a static entity. The evolution is so fast that if you're not overthinking, I know enough people that lose their careers every year. And sorry to be the voice of brutal pragmatism here, right?
Enough negativity.
Well, I live with it. This is the background of my head. But I'll tell you how it's changed, and this we found earlier this year. So I have about 1 million followers on Instagram, and my brand team calls me and they're like, listen, they only want under 300K now. Yeah, because you can get a similar amount of engagement, probably even more, at a smaller channel than for the price they'd get for 1 million. So it's all very dynamic. It shifts so quickly. Sometimes having more numbers is, but largely for your sustainability, having a bigger distribution. And here's the thing, back in the day, for instance, when you could just post whenever, there was not 1 million pieces uploaded every second. So you were not competing against the attention of and the algorithms were not evaluating what happens in the first 3 hours for your content to be pushed out to your own audience that you earned, that they've decided to take away yesterday, right? So it's a little bit weird, and I don't want to think about this. I want to think about butterflies in open meadows in Switzerland and, like hanging out with my father and my mother and my wife. Those are the things I want to think about. But how can I, it's so unignorable. The reality of the situation is that it's not a pretty one. But if you just accept it, I think you deal with it better.
And I think it boils back down to business.
Yeah.
That is your business. So you have to have it. You got to look at both sides, no matter what you do.
And I think what it is in India, it's like times 1,000 compared to in the West when it comes to, he's going to tell me off in a minute. When it comes to podcasters, right? Because I follow so many podcasters in India. They're flipping awesome at content and engagement and giving us what we want. They give us useful content. They give us emotionally connective content. They give us content that make us feel seen, right? Like you guys have really got it right. I don't think we yet, as a South Asian community in North America from a podcast perspective, have gotten it as well as you guys have. And I get that this is why there's so many more of you. And so the numbers game is important. Here, it's more a nuanced game, right? So someone would buy you if you're the only one, right? Like I'll give you an example, like with my magazine, right? For 15 years I was the only one. raking in the dough because nobody else was doing what I was doing and doing it in the way I was doing it. So what was I doing? I had a audience, and the audience was being seen and heard, and it wasn't a vanillarization or a mainstreamization of our cultural storytelling. It was I was saying it the way we were living it, which people weren't doing at that time. I still find today with the agency side, guys, that if you don't have major numbers, but you can figure out your nuance, you can figure out your niche, right? There is an audience for everything, and you can make money. You may not make $1 billion, but not everybody needs $1 billion. Some people are okay with 500,000 a year. Some people are okay with 250K a year. So think about what game you're getting into as well. Like, I just want to put that out there. Quality, quantity, there's a good and bad on both those sides.
Stop talking about monetization. Yeah, let's keep it.
So we touched upon AI. Would you guys consider AI as a tool or as a threat?
A collaborator, 100%. AI has changed the way we write content, produce content, direct content, and deliver content. It's significantly changed things in the last 6 months or a year, but human storytelling, genuine curiosity, and adaptability will always stay true. I feel like AI, if we use AI as a partner and use it to deliver stories the way we want to, my visual storytelling game has upped a notch because I have AI tools at my disposal. So if we use AI as a collaborator, but still tell stories from our own lived experiences, our own feelings, people who we see around us, issues that we observe around us, because a lot of what I do is cultural stories and what I experience as an immigrant living here in the States. I just try to bring my own genuine curiosity as an immigrant, as a person of color who lives here in the States, and then use AI as my partner.
Okay, I have a lot to say on this. AI coming into our industry is going to change everything from a cost structure and a speed structure. So there's various things to think about. Let's say we want to create a pilot for a show. Simi, you want to be in my show? We need to film a pilot tonight. We need to find location. We need to find actors. I need to get permits. Do you have 10 or 20? Do you have about $100,000 or $50,000 to help me with this? Oh, okay, so we don't need AI for that. We have Simi loaded. But we can also use AI to create a sample of our idea for $2,000, right? And now we have a pilot, a piece of art to share with folks. Just think about from a speed perspective, we can use AI now to cut up our content faster. You can take your podcast now and using a Google tool, put it through the tool, and your podcast can be delivered in every Indian language possible, right? And that's within hours. If you think about the movie and TV industry, it used to take us months to sub and dub everything, and now it changes your lips. So you went from Hindi and English to Tamil just like that. It's magical, right? And it's amazing. So now your content is distributed around the world in multiple languages, faster and cheaper than ever. And then last year at Google I/O, they showed a lot of different tools for all of us in this industry, where you can change the background, change the music, and make edits, anything that you're creating at a very low cost. So let's say and then you don't need to reshoot shows, to reshoot scenes from movies. You can use AI to clean all of that up. And there's a couple things I want you to go research. In China, there's now an AI cast where the anchor is AI and you cannot tell, giving you the news. It's in India too. It's really scary because then they take that news and they can do it in multiple languages. We'll talk about the adverse effects of that later. And then if you're not following the vertical video trend, there's now full series being made in AI. So go check out Storeel, S-T-O-R-E-E-L. One of my former students presented in the final exams, moved to China, and launched this vertical video company and created their first all AI series. I mean, there's tears in it. The quality of it is amazing. There's no emotionality, so it's a little but still, if you want to put together a story and bring it to life, I'm not saying she's creating Oscar or Emmy-winning content, but she's still able to bring those stories to life. And this has only been possible. And it's getting better and better. Things have changed even from September, October, November?
I think AI is going to fundamentally change everything in the land of media and content. The number of tech CEOs, and they have entire avatars of themselves. We are producing entire content series where all of the talent is AI. You couldn't even tell. Most of the time, I can't tell. This goes to my earlier point of like, I think every time society sees an upheaval from a tech perspective, the pendulum swings back in certain types of ways. AI is so different because of the speed, to Sean's point, that I don't know what jobs are going to exist in 10 years. My sister has this 18-month-old niece, or I have an 18-month-old niece, and I'm like, I think Zoya's going to be a carpenter because a lot of these jobs aren't going to exist. And so, but I think the reality is the most you can do is treat it as a collaborator, adapt to it. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom in this world, and I just thinking critically about investing in other parts of your life, doing what makes you happy, and thinking and treating it as something that is unfortunately inevitable, but something that, you know, we're gonna have to restructure society as the way it exists, and we're all gonna be along for that ride. And I know Parker's gonna come for my life right now.
We spend a lot of time talking about AI with a lot of people on my show, a lot, and I ask people who are not in AI also about AI all the time, and I'll tell you classic answers I get on how you should think about the AI and the futures. First of all, bang on, it's a collaborator right now, but I think we're 2 months away from it becoming a necessity, right? There's just, the borders just almost crossed. You cannot survive without it. The interesting part is that anytime I ask somebody what the future holds and how should one prepare for it, the best answer is just play around with AI. And that's such an ambiguous answer. Like, what do you mean play around with AI? One of the more interesting points I got from this AI researcher back in India, she was telling me about the costs per query that you throw into AI and how that's VC funded right now, and how that money will dry up eventually, and it might eventually bounce back in a way where like having a researcher is cheaper than asking AI to do your research. That might occur. But what is to know about AI is we are still in the DOS era of AI. We haven't hit Windows 98 yet. We haven't hit Mac OS or iOS or all that stuff. That's still to come. So, frankly, I'm not very doom-centric. I do think these ideas of universal basic income, etc. do not work. I think government regulation will come and hit hard for countries like India where they're labor economies. We do labor arbitrage around the world. We are famous for some of the brightest minds around the world are people that come from our community. I don't think we are going to be in a place where the government regulation against AI will not try to prevent some of this job loss and this restructuring of society. We'll find that resistance. Although technology is a one-way train, it does not stop. But I think at this point, you just cannot outrun AI. It's everywhere. It's going to change everything we do. Everything. And you just have to accept that. It's more than a collaborator. It's a necessity, almost bordering on that.
I would actually consider AI like what website and internet was back in the day. When that came, everybody was like, oh, we're just using it for mail, or we're checking the weather. Nobody knew that it was actually coming in and pretty much becoming streamlined and necessity for everything we do. Today, can you imagine anything without the use of internet? It's impossible. So eventually, I think we're at that cusp of AI where it is going to integrate itself into society, into our norm, but by putting in certain, standards, like jobs and where we go. So it's still so new. Right now, all we can do is collaborate with it. What's going to happen tomorrow? We really don't know.
I just want to add something to this. When we think about AI as a collaborator, as a partner, I think human role will become all the more important, and I'm optimistic, and there's a reason. Because Perplexity, Gemini, they can summarize the news for you in seconds, right? You don't need a traditional journalist to put together news for you anymore, right? AI can do that. If you want to learn about US-Iran war, it can do it for you in seconds and tell you the depth of it. Where humans will still stay valid, or our role will still stay valid, is the trust. Because there's so much information that AI is presenting you. Fact-checking, trust, credibility, human perspective, lived experiences, relatability, this is where we will come in, and we will always stay valid. At least I feel that.
Can I just make a comment to that? Where AI is concerned, I think it's the best thing that ever happened on the planet, because honestly, from my perspective, if I don't have to work for a living and AI can do everything, I'm down. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that, just like everyone here has been saying, it is the wild, wild west of AI right now, but can you imagine the possibilities for your life to be less stressful, less kind of consumed with how do I make money, how do I pay this, how do I pay this forward, how do I create generational wealth? It would be nice to not have to think about that. There's a lot of, economists that are saying that potentially could be something that happens down the line, that we don't have to work for a living and that we can live our lives better. So I dig that, and I can't wait to have a robot in my house to do all those chores that I'm so tired at my age to do. And with my menopause added to the mix, like, please bring me that bloody robot. Like, AI, I am with you.
I'll say something about Carpenter and that stuff. I was at Boston Dynamics last year, speaking to their chief marketing officer, and you'd be surprised, Carpentry is not free from the AI intervention at that point. Right, like it's an actuation problem. Yeah, right. And so one, there is that. About what you were saying, we actually internally call this the information versus value distinction. And so you can create any amount of content that either tells a story that has no bearing on somebody's psyche, in the sense that they don't follow it. Like they enjoy it, but they don't like listen to it for opinion. You can do information and news, no problem. But the minute you go into value, what is very important is, say, if my value is X president is bad, people need to see my take in that statement. I can throw a statement, but if I'm on the street protesting, it makes the statement more real. If I'm willing to risk my job saying it, right. And so for that, there is a for value alignment, human intervention is very important. This is my guess for another 2 years, because we shouldn't bet any further than 2 years at this rate. My bet for the next 2 years is you cannot do value-driven media enterprises with pure end-to-end AI. I think human intervention is very important there, but who knows how that will change.
So I call my GPT Sean GPT. You can feed it all of your prior writing and it will start to write like you. So Sean GPT said, to close this question out, I asked it, AI won't replace media companies, but it will absolutely reshape which ones win.
I was just going to say, Raju and Jasmine, completely agree with both of you. I think, Jasmine, what you said is that the value of a human will, I think, always be there. And then there's that trust factor as well. Like, somebody's always going to listen to your podcast or switch on a TV channel and be like, actually, I remember this from so many years ago, I do trust it. Or, somebody coming to me and say, Anushka, I've just seen this trailer on YouTube. Is this real? Is this Hrithik Roshan's next movie? And I'll be like, no, it's fake. Because I know my thing. I know my movies and I know what Hrithik's next movie is going to be, and it's certainly not that one. So I think that human value, I think, like you said, you want to be optimistic, so do I. So you completely agree with that.
All right, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. Each one of you, tell me a challenge that you have gone through and a fun story. Short though, let's.
I'll go. So I think a challenge that I've gone through is, the very recent one is moving from London to New York. I think just it was never in the plan. I never saw this coming. I probably envisioned myself more moving to India than to the US from London. I always say that to my husband. But I think seeing it more, used to, last year I saw it as a challenge, but now I think I've accepted it and I just feel a lot more positive about it, and have met so many amazing people. So I'm now in the process of overcoming that. And a fun story is that I have been on the radio for 36 hours straight. So I started with a 24-hour radio marathon in 2016, and then just when COVID was happening, I was like, what can I do to keep my audience with me? So I decided to do a 36-hour radio marathon for charity. And that went down pretty well, so yeah.
That's amazing. Yes, absolutely for that. So you guys know by now that I'm kind of the ancient one on this panel. So I go back many, many years to the wild, wild west of when South Asians weren't being considered as anything of value in North America, which is why I started Anokhi Magazine. And I specifically wanted the magazine in mainstream newsstands. I wanted there to be, celebrities from our community, as well as celebrities from the West. So we were the first magazine to have Jennifer Lopez on the cover, Maya on the cover, and a lot of these big Western celebrities, as well as the South Asian celebrities. But then the conundrum I had was that my own people were saying, aren't there enough brown celebrities? Why do you need to put like Jennifer Lopez on your cover? Because I put her on the cover too soon. She was on my second cover. In those days, which is very different from creating content today, is you needed permission from everybody. I needed the manager's permission, I needed J-Lo's permission, I needed the PR's permission. There was a whole kind of red tape thing I had to go in order to put her on the cover. What my community, because I was kind of, my foresight was too soon. What I was trying to do was to tell my community that if someone like Jennifer Lopez thinks that our community is important to her as a fan base, that also is important as a community, as is our Bollywood celebrities. So there was kind of a duality in that message. That was a huge challenge I had, because I alternated, you remember this, right? I alternated with a Western celebrity and a South Asian celebrity, throughout the lifetime of the print magazine. A fun story that I wanted to mention, and what happened was that I got more backlash from my community than I did from anyone else with the way that I did that, but it was the only way I could get advertising dollars to allow the print magazine to keep functioning. And we had everyone from L'Oreal to, like the hotels, to beauty companies, to Diageo, paying us money for years and years on end, which there hasn't been a Western print magazine about our communities that's ever accomplished that to date. So I wanted to kind of put that out there. That allowed me to then go into doing annual award shows. You can't put on an award show if you don't have money. I never had money. I would go to all of these sponsors, like main sponsors, to give me money so I could support and showcase my community, so that more of the younger generation would say, I can also go into the arts. Because the only award shows when I started were for business, were for the doctors, for the lawyers. They weren't for artists. I wanted to change that. And my own people wouldn't give me the money. I had to go to mainstream non-South Asians to get the money to support my own people, which was the weirdest thing ever. But that's a true story. I'm going to quickly tell you a funny story. So back in the day, on our 10th anniversary, we had Priyanka Chopra come down for our award show in Toronto. She was like our special guest, and we were doing like, game changer awards. Who were all the game changers across all these industries that were South Asian, that were allowing us to be able to step into these other verticals, right? The ones today we have magnificent, thresholding across the world. And so she came and she said yes, and I was shit scared. I was scared that I was going to get a star that big that was now someone I had to look after. So I paid for security to sit outside her hotel, 2 people, and follow her around because I was scared that someone might steal her on my watch. Right? That this literally was the truth. This was the wild, wild west of back in the day. It wasn't all organized and institutionalized the way it is today. So much so that the chauffeur was my ex-husband. And I'm not even lying. Because I was too scared to put her in a car with someone I didn't know, and then all of a sudden I'd have a ransom on my hands. These are the days of back in the day. And I know, Raju, you understand that, right?
Okay, so I think working in this business is a challenge every single day. And people come to me all the time for advice as they're transitioning careers or as they're entering this industry. And so since last year, the first thing I say to them, either as a content creator or a commercial executive, is how much passion do you have and how much of an addiction do you have to film, television, streaming, social media, etc. Because if you don't have an addiction and aren't really passionate about it, then you might want to think about other industries to work in, because we're going through such a transformational change. It is very hard to find, I'm talking about the business side of things, it's very hard to find entry-level positions, it's very hard to find jobs, most people are not hiring. And even when you find those positions, it's not going to be very easy. So I think it's very challenging for folks to think about and reflect upon whether or not they want to stay in this industry. On the other side, this industry is very intellectually stimulating. It's constantly changing. Everything you work on is intellectually stimulating and challenging. Every 6 months, something is changing. Nothing that I've worked on has been the same for the past 10 years. But for me, I already talked about my addiction to this industry, so it doesn't matter. I don't even consider it work. It's really fun. So my fun story would just be working in this industry. I have other fun stories, but I don't know.
I already mentioned sort of the challenge, and the challenge about my journey is kind of figuring out how I can actually just do my voice and maybe put the game on the back burner, right? That sort of constant intersection between business and art, and how to truly monetize art in a world where art is commoditized to business, right? So like that, and I think it's a specific social media issue, if you were to be honest with yourself. But I do think it bleeds over to music. Like I know many musicians who make music so that it works on reels, and it's a hit formula. You can have that transition. And so there is that. That's the challenge. I'm enjoying it, frankly. It's a good intellectual puzzle to solve. You're very right about it. This is always very stimulating. Funny story, and I was thinking about it. I have so many, but I'll tell you the broad gist of all funny stories that probably will hit home. You actively watch history being rewritten in the words of people around you every 6 months. The number of times people have come up to me and told me this is not going to work is fantastic. And then when they introduce you later, 6 months later, to a group of crowd as sort of the go-in between you and them, and the way they describe it, the most private laughter I can have inside the back of my head. The number of relatives, the number of family friends, and sort of that extent, number of haters and sort of naysayers, and you see them change, it's fantastic. You realize just how fickle people's beliefs are and how confident they can sound, by the way, including you, until the facts present themselves in the opposite direction. Yeah, that's fun. You'll really enjoy it.
It's a nice redemption, right?
Always. You're just watching for who hasn't converted to your side yet, and you're like, give me 6 months.
So I think one of the most challenging thing for me personally and professionally is patience. We live in this world of instant gratification, content-wise, life, Amazon deliveries, everything. We want it right now. Like I wanted it last second, not right now. So I think since many of you guys are young professionals, starting out your journeys or students, I think the thing to remember is ultimately it's a long game. You play between platforms, you work with different formats, AI, no AI. Ultimately, staying patient and, what you said, Sean, like staying true to your passion, what you really believe in will take you further, but that's my biggest challenge. It's been very hard for me to stay patient through this journey and knowing the fact that it is a long game. Fun stories, I'm particularly a boring person, so don't have many fun stories, but recently we were out on a trip and we were in California, so me and my husband, we're both foodies and both from Ludhiana, Amritsar. We tried Amritsari kulcha and chole bhature at a food truck. I randomly decide to interview this food truck person on the street. He's like in a parking lot which feeds truck drivers, Punjabi Sikh truck drivers. I interview him, that video goes viral, and his business quadrupled 4 times. He hired 7 people from him being like 6, and it was nothing. It was nothing. It was just done on a whim. I'm like, oh my God, we love his food. My husband's like, this is the best thing that has happened to us in this whole trip. I had my collar mic, and I'm like, do you mind recording this video? He stands, behind the camera. We do the video. It's like 1.5 minutes. my editor is like, are you sure you want to post this? This is not professionally curated content. I'm like, let's just do it. We love the food. We post it, goes viral. That guy calls me. He's like, I can't tell you how much I love you right now. And this is the beauty, right? If you believe in something, if you genuinely care about something, it comes through. It takes time. That's the hardest part, but stay put.
Did you get free food from the guy at least? I mean, I was quadrupled? 400%? That's amazing.
Not then, but now every time he's like, you should come over, and anytime you're here in California, the food is on me.
He should fly food out and get it landed as date night specials for you and you. That's crazy. Good story.
I think the biggest challenge that I face, and I continue to face today, is the unity amongst our own culture. Sad to say it, but it's a fact. From a business point of view, it took me forever to break into mainstream clients to let them know, hey, there's enough Indians, there's enough South Asians to watch this content that will go buy a Lexus, that will go buy a Nissan, that will subscribe to Verizon, that will do this because they did not see us. The reason they didn't see us is because I'm Raju Sethi, she's Simi, we're not collective. We're not represented in a collective manner. So I remember, this can be a funny story also, that years ago, Lexus had said, you know what, the ad agency that handled them said, I'm having a tough time explaining to these guys who you are. So can we just get everybody together in a room, let's pitch ideas, because the Filipino community, they do this convention they put together every year in Las Vegas, where all the media, newspapers, television, everybody comes together, they have their own stalls, and representatives from all the companies go around and they get a chance to meet everybody one-on-one. Now, not only do they see your media, but they also see the strength in unity. So that when they see a unity, the community that is together, they feel, oh my God, there's a sense of loyalty here. So if one person is going to buy a Lexus, they're going to continue buying a Lexus, probably. You know, marketing things. So anyway, they got all these guys together, and you know, we all started to say, hey, I'm sitting there saying, hey, I'm totally for it. Maybe we can get together, put in something similar. Let's get all these companies together. We'll start and present to ourselves. The guy next to me says, well, you know, right now everybody's watching your show. Not too many people are watching mine. So, you know, what is going to happen to this? The other person saying, well, what if Raju gets this and I don't get this? Here we are splitting up a pie that doesn't exist. Nobody sat and thought, let's first get that pie. And let's first concentrate on making good content, show everybody that we're united, and let everybody come close, because we all stand to win. I don't care if I'm the smallest person in the room. But even if I'm the smallest person in the room and I am in that room, I'm a part of that movement, right? So that is a challenge that I still feel. Even as media, we've grown. Yes, a lot of the big companies, there are Indian people that have gotten in, they've educated, so they know that the community is there. But still, are we at the level of Hispanics? No. Yes, it's huge. Are we at the level of other communities? We are not. And that is one of the biggest drawbacks that most ethnic communities face. So the first thing I want to do is actually see how we can stop these niches and start doing things more collectively.
I think there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens, right?
I think so. And on the funny note, I've got very ABCD kids. So during COVID, they used to make fun of me prior to COVID, being in Bollywood, you know, doing all these song and dance. So when COVID came around, I had to shut my studio down. So guess who my new editors were? They were my kids. So I got my daughter sitting and editing my top 10. I got my son coming and doing all the CGs. So now, here I see my daughter making the top 10, figuring out exactly which mantra to use, and actually, hey, Pa, is this okay? You know, they're saying, Aaj din ye, is that okay if I do this? I was like on cloud 9. I was like, yes! And she started liking Indian music, watching Indian movies, something even though she should have been doing before, but chalo, better late than ever.
Really quick, there's a fun story, Raju, of yours I'm going to say. So when Raju was first starting out, Amitabh Bachchan used to work in his basement. Yeah. How can you not say that one? Can you elaborate just a little bit on that?
So ABS at that time was what it was, and Mr. Bachchan was planning to launch a 24-hour channel. He had gotten involved with TV Asia in the UK. He partnered with someone, so he wanted to do something in the US also. And he was scouting around, and we met, and he liked what we did, and they decided to bring TV Asia to the US. Now, this was before anything, so we were going to launch on satellite because there was no other medium to have a 24-hour channel. Cables were very limited. There were maybe 15, 20, 30 channels, and to try and get in to get a full-time channel wasn't going to work. So, and I used to have my studio in the basement back in those days because we were just starting out. So Mr. Bachchan used to come, he used to stay here in Manhattan. Every day, he would drive down. He actually got a license. He would drive down to my studio, come spend the time with me. We would cut the promos, go over the lineup. And the only request he had was, can you please tell your mom to make mungi masar di dal for me? That's it. But, I mean, it was great. That's how it started. We really worked together for 2 years, and we're still in touch.
Really quick, Simi, and sometimes Amitabh used to come see Rekha in the city.
We're not supposed to talk about that. I had to
Cameras off, please.
They'll be cutting that section. That's a tough act to follow. Just to echo the earlier story you told, something that I have really tried to live by is let's stop fighting each other for crumbs and go fight for the pie together. And I think that goes to, I think, some of the challenges that we continue to face, even for me, as I've only been doing this for 6 years compared to the giants on this panel. But the other struggle that I have at times is treating success as a moving goalpost. I feel like there are moments where I am living my wildest dreams and I forget that this was my wildest dream 5, 6, 10 years ago because I'm already on to the next thing. And I think we come from a community of overachievers, people that are striving. And so I've really tried to take time to figure out how I can slow down and really relish the wins and just in the joy of a given moment. My fun story, I think this goes a little bit to what you were talking about unity, is when I was graduating from business school last May, I was actually I've been building Trailblazers for 6 years, but most of that has always been on the side. It started as a passion project in 2020. I was continuing to work full-time role. And as I was graduating, I was really contemplating whether I wanted to go full-time on this. And it was amazing because it was my classmates, South Asian and non-South Asian, who were like, what are you talking about? Like, this isn't even a question. And the amount of them, especially my non-South Asian friends, who will be like, have you seen Liv in F1? Like, get him on the podcast. Or like, Ashley is dropping, and they're sending me content of what we should talk about. It's just like, to me, so beautiful, to everyone's point of the way that non-South Asians are engaging in and loving culture. And literally, they're like my eyes and ears on the ground, better than our own people sometimes. So that's just been really special for me. And I feel so grateful because all of this takes a village. And we can all sit up here and say a ton of things, but at the end of the day, like, I'm an armchair expert. I don't know what's gonna happen. And I think the best we can do is just like live in the joy, keep learning, and continue to support each other.
We're gonna open up the floor for a couple of questions, if anyone has.
Hello. Oh, yeah, that was loud. Hi, thank you guys so much for coming today. This was really engaging. I want to set up my question a little bit. So I was listening to a podcast of Asaminaj with Riz Ahmed about the bait show that just came out. So good. I binged it in a day. And one of the things that Riz Ahmed said was representation kind of means nothing if it changes who you are when you get in the room. And I was wondering how you guys kind of balance that fine line. Like, once you do make it, how do you still uphold your community values and make sure they also get into the room? And it kind of speaks to your guys' point about going for the pie together. Like, how do you balance that on a day-to-day basis?
When you are in the room, you are in the room. So for me, if we've made it as collectively as a community, you take the whole community with you, because that opens up so many possibilities for so many others who are watching me enter the room. Even if I don't bring up their names, even if I don't balance, just me making it to the room, entering that room, it opens up so many possibilities. And I think that's how I take it.
I can't speak for the room Riz is in because those rooms are big. And I don't know what kind of pressures happen in those rooms. I do not know any other way than to be myself, sometimes to my own detriment. And I think that's a life fairly well lived because you're not confused who you were last night and who you are this morning. And that might mean that some people dislike you at the outset, but that's just the cost of it. Frankly, some people are always going to dislike you. You learn that very quickly if you go through a comment section in my line of work, and that's okay. In fact, it gets very rare to find what you're okay being disliked about. Because then if you start thinking that, like, you were saying, you can overthink what is the line I draw, who am I? It's just so much simpler if you're just yourself. And that should be a given. It should not be an insertion later. It should not be something you add to the equation after 6 months of sort of being around the room. That's where it should start. And we kind of manifest this in many ways. Like, I refuse to move to Mumbai because I don't want those rooms. I will live in Delhi because I want to live with my parents, and I think I will never get the opportunity when they're this young again. And that is a core value, a core driver for me, despite the pressures that come my way. I will do 100 flights a year, and I literally do, so that I can come back to my sister and my dog. And so, like what I'm trying to say, these are small examples. Not everybody can afford that. My job allows me to do that, but it's just better if you start with who you are. Again, probably Riz's rooms are extremely pressureful, and I'll answer that question better when I'm there.
Anyway, I think you had a... All right, we're going to come to you, Serge.
Hi, my question is for, I can't remember your name, Raj. I have to say, I also grew up in Toronto, so you're not the only Canadian here. My question is for your point you made about your second magazine cover when you put Jennifer Lopez. I do have to agree with, your community not being fully supportive of you putting Jennifer Lopez because, being that, as you said, South Asian was, just coming up and coming to the surface of just, society. Putting J-Lo was kind of just like, oh, well, she doesn't look like us. She doesn't look like me, so how would she represent us? But I get where your point was, where you're like, oh, if J-Lo is representing South Asians, putting us on the map, bringing us, mainstream, I get both sides. My question is, did you regret putting her on the cover, and did that discourage you from making other cover decisions for your other magazines?
Such a layered and complicated question to answer because I agree on everything you just said. I knew that I was going to get backlash, but I also knew that nobody was paying attention to my community. No one was seeing them. We weren't getting any ads from any mainstream. And, at that time she was the most, I said to my team, I said, look, we're not getting any money. I don't know if this magazine is going to last. I need to do something Anokhi. It's called Anokhi. Anokhi in Hindi means unique or different. I didn't want to be yet another magazine that was, and there was a lot coming out at that time as well. They didn't last because they didn't look at it from a business perspective, to your point. But I did. I'm like, how am I going to get the big boys that have the money, take this small little brown magazine seriously from somebody who had no media degree, no business degree, no celebrity ins. I had no corporate network. I was just trying to solve a problem that kept biting me in my arse every moment of my life. And that's like a whole different story. I was just tired of it. I wanted to tell our stories the way we lived them. And the problem at that time was, everybody wanted to tell our story their way. I wanted to tell our stories our way, how we lived them. So I thought to myself, the only way I can keep this going, playing devil's advocate, was I need to do something different, something that's going to get this media attention and pull us out of being the unseen media. So that's and at that time, our team says, well, the biggest non-South Asian star in the world right now, this was going back to 2002, this was J-Lo 1.0. is Jennifer Lopez. So I said, okay, I got to go to New York and I got to go get me Jennifer Lopez. I went to New York for 3 days. That's all the money I had. I had no idea how I was going to get her, but I'm telling you, there's something to be said about serendipitous actions. I vehemently, it's like when you pray to God, like I vehemently wanted our media to be seen. So I had to put the media in front of not our audience, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? And it was a very difficult decision for me. I knew I would like get tortured by my community, and I did. But they also bought the magazine, which was wonderful. So I think like the easiest way I can answer this for you is I felt like I sold out, and I kind of sort of did, if I'm to be totally honest. But that selling out allowed me to get money to be able to keep that magazine going on newsstands for 12 consecutive years after that, so it was worth the sellout.
Suraj, I think back there you had a question?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Sonia, for inviting us to this event. Super engaging, so round of applause, guys. Okay, so this is a bit of a controversial question, but I love to throw a challenge. So I'm really passionate about filmmaking, and I'm really curious to know, and anybody could take this, when we see films like Durandar and this plethora of films that are like depicting patriotism, do you feel like this is really evolving storytelling and filmmaking? Is it hurting cinema? Is it inspiring it? It really sounds like, I mean, there's so much propaganda, and I don't know if these films really need to be made for the sake of, you know, art imitating cinema or vice versa, or if they should just not be made at all. So where do you guys stand on that? How do you draw the line between patriotism and propaganda?
So I think it's important to understand how Indian cinema has really changed over the years. We have gone from the love stories back in the day to the action-packed masala movies mixed in and bringing in all the south side of the movies. We've had that whole collaboration with them. And now we've gone to movies like Kabir Singh, Animal, and now we are here at Durandar. Have you seen Durandar, by the way? Okay, so there we go. You've seen it, right? Now, this also goes back to the length of the movies as well. Now, don't forget, Aditya Dhar has made this, I want to say, one long movie, but split into 2 parts. He's made it for an audience who has 0 attention span, but yet I'm very sure most of us have all gone to see it. We've sat there for 4 hours to see it. Now, your question is the whole propaganda and all of that. Look, filmmaking is a subject where people are going to talk, no matter what subject it is, no matter if it's domestic violence, whether it's propaganda, whether it's a love story, we're all going to go and watch it. And I think that is the beauty of cinema. So I think, again, I come back to my point, is that we're just overthinking. I think we just need to go and watch a movie. Just watch a movie and it's okay. It's great to have these conversations. I love that. But I think we just need to watch the movie and watch the movie for how well it's edited. How amazing was Ranveer Singh? Oh my God. How amazing was Akshay Khanna? We haven't seen Akshay Khanna for so many years, but it's brought him back. Animal, if we go back to Animal, it brought back Bobby Deol. He's now in his 2nd innings of his film career. So I think we need to look at the not so serious conversations as opposed to the conversations of propaganda and whatnot. But I think filmmaking is just, Indian filmmaking, I feel, is now coming to a point where we want to show what Indian cinema is. We want to show the world that this is our cinema. And yes, we are eligible for Oscars, not just one random movie, but all these big movies. Like we had Ramayana, the teaser came out for that earlier this week. If you haven't seen the scale of that movie, I mean, we're talking, that's a really, really like next level scaled movie that is. But I think we need to look at the bigger picture of Indian cinema as a whole and not just, you know, put it down to, oh, you know, you've said this about, you know, our neighboring country or whatever. I just don't think we need to take it so seriously. I think we just need to enjoy the moment and enjoy the cinema that is being given to us.
I think that's very well said. I'll just add to that, Anushka. Propaganda, again, it is right now, just like she said, why are we overlooking the movie that was made? This is all against social media created. Oh my God, propaganda. There's going to be so much trolling. Anushka spoke about Ramayan. Now that could be propaganda too, that we're promoting Hinduism. Why? Why do we have to do that? Why cannot we talk about the scale of a movie that may compete with Hollywood when it comes out? Durandar, again, talking about long form, short form. Everybody, now Ditya Dhar and his brother are good friends of mine, and they have made a 7.5-hour movie. Simple. But why was it released? First of all, it should not be released if it was just propaganda. It was good. The studio took a gamble and said, you know what? You've made such a good film, we're going to release it in 2 parts. Even the cast, even Aditya Dhar himself, did not know until 2 weeks prior to release that this is going to be 2 parts. He was still editing it down to 3.5 hours. But when he finished the first 3.5 hours, he said to himself, he's like, wait a minute. Let's not overlook all the characters that we have. How the hell can I do justice to so many characters? If you look at the first half of the Durandar Part 1, what is Ranveer Singh's role? He is the biggest star in that movie. He is a sideline. Everybody else, he is nothing but in the back while everybody else is talking. Do you see how cinema is also evolving? Actors are also evolving. Tell me, maybe 5 years now, maybe Shah Rukh Khan would do this now. If Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, they came with this script and said, oh, for the first 3 hours, you're going to be behind Akshay Khanna, or you're going to be behind Uzair or somebody else. They're going to be like, what are you, nuts? I'm the guy people are coming to watch. Why is that not happening? So, propaganda, we put it aside. Look at the movie this man has made. He has literally changed the course of Hindi cinema as we know it. We are no longer going to accept what we've been getting. I think Yash Raj Films and their whole spy universe is going to be thinking big time. Can I feed audiences what I have been feeding them before? Cinema is always evolving. So I think with Durandar, there's a big evolution that has taken place, keeping the propaganda out of it. Now, he made a story that has used real life events to take things forward. Great. But again, how many movies that have come that you could say are propaganda that flopped? So many of them. So many of them, they do all this, but they flop, right? It's good storytelling. At the end, that's what works. Anybody else?
No, I was going to say, you're creating art and content for different groups of people and different demographics. So what we may see as propaganda is beautiful, patriotic art to someone else, right? If I tell you that I'm a Fox News viewer, you're going to be like, Sean, why are you supporting that, right? Propaganda network. So should Fox News exist? CNN, MSNBC, we have the same issue in the US, but they are feeding audiences what they want, and those audiences don't see them as patriotism. But what you said about the Ramayan film is very interesting. Other folks might say that is Hindu propaganda, right? Yeah.
I'll give you a little instance, and it's probably gonna sound a little jarring. About 3, 4, 5 years ago, I was sitting in the company of some extremely successful intellectual people from journalism and academia and all of that, and all of them had South Asian backgrounds. And I was probably the only guy actually who lived in India who was in that room, and this was in New York. And there was a lot of hue and cry about India's political situation. And then somebody turned to me, like, you live there, why don't you tell me what we think and what you think about that? I said, we can debate morality all day long. We can talk about the pros and cons of certain ideas over others. But the fact of the matter is that the temperature on the ground has shifted. And if you don't deal with that in that way, you can cry all you want. It's not going to change a thing, right? And I think Durandar is a representation of that. The mood of the country has effectively shifted. I did not like Animal. I never watched Kabir Singh. I'm very vocal about Animal, for instance. I was like, the first half gave me such a reason to watch it. The second half just let me down. Because if you're going to explore a father-son relationship, and God knows South Asians have tricky father-son relationships, then just build that up. Why are you taking me into all this gore in the second half? But as a matter of fact, I think Durandar is probably the best Indian film I've seen in 10 years. And there is no denying that. Dude, to make 100 crores right now, these people are lining up left, right, center, overworking their A to just make 100 crores. For a movie to make 1,500 crores before it hits the second weekend, that's business that's never been seen before. So to deal it off and just call it propaganda is minimizing the choice of every individual who doesn't have enough money but is paying that money to go to a theater. When Indian filmmakers are conceptualizing movies, their biggest thing is, how do I get somebody who makes maybe $500 a month to pay $2.50 to take him and his wife and his kids buy $1 worth of popcorn when he does not have that disposable. The fact that people are putting that amount of money in a country like India behind to watch it, not produce it, that tells you a lot. And so the temperature on the ground is shifted. And armchair commentary is insufficient to tackle that, if that's your question.
Yeah. Also, I have a lot of Pakistani friends that have watched the movie and they loved it, and they've gone twice to even see it. So it's really your perspective, I think, also. One more question, and then we're going to...
I'll make mine quick so that maybe you can squeeze your in. My name is Anushka Purohit, specifying because there's another Anushka on the panel. I think the one thing we can all understand today is everybody has a lot of opinions, and that's the value of an event like this. You get to hear it. But I think in the media industry, you have a little bit of a moral responsibility to paint the full picture so that the person watching your content can then form their own opinion. And given all of you have such great opinions and are vocal about it, how do you draw that line between personal and professional? Do you have an instance where maybe a brand came to you and said, I'll pay you a lot of money that would have make or breaken, your perspective on something, but you didn't fully, truly agree with it? How do you make that difficult decision of, yes, this will make me a lot of money, but maybe I don't fully appreciate it or side with it? Or second, a trend that everyone's talking about that you might not feel is relevant. Dhurandhar, for example. Everyone's talking about Dhurandhar, but maybe you personally didn't like the movie. How do you make yourself empowered enough to still keep your opinion, especially because it is your bread and butter at the end of the day?
Well, I've been asking Ansh to book us some cricketers because, I live in India, I've never spoken to a cricketer. It's such a hard thing, but I'm a chess guy. I'm a nerd when it comes to chess. I've recorded so many chess podcasts. Sometimes I record them and we don't even release them because they're frankly 19-year-old kids who are brilliant at the game but don't know how to talk, and then we're like, what do we do with this? So, like I said, you start with who you are as opposed to trying to follow trends. People can see through that very quickly. About the brand work, the funny thing is, I think over the last 3 years, the consumer, my audience, knows when I'm doing something for money, and they don't care. They're okay. Yeah, they're like, listen, you buy some paneer today, have some Shahi paneer at home with this money. You give us great content regardless. You put out 1,000 pieces a week. If you make one piece that makes you money, we don't mind that at all. And so the way we look at it is we do legal and reputational checks with who we are associating ourselves with, because it's a very tricky field. And we try to double check that. But beyond that, I don't really care too much. There is a line though we draw, for instance, we never take money from politicians. No matter what, even if it's something I agree with and they want to pay me, just do it for free if you want. Do not pay me money, because I don't want to be peddling ideology for money. That's the sort of line I draw. Peddling business for money, that's my business. That's advertising. That's what everybody does everywhere. You can have moral issues with Ozempic, for instance. Every major news channel is pushing Ozempic on you right now. Doctors are right. You may not have a moral issue with Ozempic also. Marijuana is a controversial subject. It's legal. You smell the city, it smells of weed. You may have a moral issue with it, but advertising it is advertising, and at this point people are desensitized to it. They understand what an ad is versus what content is, and they're completely okay with it. So I think it's become easier for us. We had to do this soul searching 5 years ago. Does this brand work with my ethos? Nobody cares anymore. Your ethos are nebulous. Nobody can even hold on to it. You're not even in their field, right? So I do think, however, there's a point to be made, and this is something I sort of created as a wall. I don't want any personal complications. I don't want any personal submissions or compromises. So I keep that super separate. You will never see my mother on content. You will barely see my wife on content. You'll see my dad. I've done one episode with him, but that's it. Because I just don't want that involvement. I know how the media world operates, and I don't want them to be pressure points in the future. So you kind of have to do some version of that, but beyond that, it's green territory.
I want to just add to that. So on my podcast, because it's about immigrants, the word immigrant itself has a negative connotation, right? Some of us here might be Democrats, some might be Republican, I'm assuming. So I do a lot of political content, and some of my content is where I give my opinions, and I've had politicians on my show also. The way I balance it is I always look at it objectively, right? Because Democrats have their own opinions, Republicans have their own opinions, but life is not black and white. Neither is content black and white. So you need to look at it from a very objective lens when you're created. And if you think of yourself as a journalist or like, as I do, very objectively, and at the end, that's how I usually do it. We recently posted a video about Sikh truck drivers who are facing backlash from the Trump administration. And it's not, and as I researched into this topic 6 months, because I was just following it for my own personal, I care about the community, so I was just following the case. You see that the administration, the truck drivers are at as much fault as the administration is. So it's never black and white, it's always gray. You have to look at it objectively, present bipartisan views, present the thing as it is, whatever topic you choose, with facts, due diligence and credibility. And at the end, if you want to share your own opinions.
Guys, we're getting a little hint to wrap up, but if your question is quick, we'll take it.
Yeah,
Last one.
Sorry. I won't take up too much of your time. By the way, hi guys. Great panel. Thank you so much for all your opinions and everything. My question is actually about like South Asians and their own relationship with their culture and their heritage here in the States and back home. And I want to ask this with the Prada Kolhapuri example, because everyone back home was raging about like, oh my God, how can they steal it? But I heard Shubhika from Papa Don't Preach say this in, I think, like one of her podcasts, that it was necessary for Prada to do this because it was already a part of her heritage, but you were not paying the premium for it, to an Indian audience, right? Like, yes, it was already there, but if you're not going to appreciate your own culture, then you cannot like call out these big companies when they're going to take your cultural significances and make it their own and then give it to you as market it to you as like luxury. So, but like Indians and like South Asians in general, like their relationship with their own culture and their heritage, it's like very complicated. I think here in the States, they've still been able to do it really well, where they're like reclaiming their roots. But back home, like back in India, I think a lot of the younger generation are still like becoming more proud of it, but a lot of the people are still very much like, West is the best. So why do you think that is the way it is right now? And what do you think like media is doing to change that narrative?
I think her question is, how is media now trying to, in a very simple way, showing that the South quote unquote, acceptable, cool, and valid?
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta have, like, I'll tell you how I'm trying to tackle it, because I have some sympathy with that cause. I've lived here and I've sort of experienced the lack of self-esteem that a lot of us sort of go through. It's undeniable, first of all. I just think we need more Indians, more South Asians, however you want to phrase it, owning themselves. Right? I think the Kolhapuri chappals are nothing. What has happened of yoga is a tragedy. It's been stripped of all its spiritual significance and it's been reduced to downward dog. And it's frankly abhorrent. I'm mad at that. And chai has been made into chai tea latte. Please fuck out of here with that. And these are the many examples of how that happens. I frankly, as a voice myself, don't think I want to be found crying about that. I want to just change it. And if I become, in my limited way, a very prominent individual, and I represent the aspiration of everybody that sort of aligns with my value system, it becomes a lot easier for people to be like, like in a weird way, we are all standing on the shoulder of Priyanka Chopra, and we are all standing on the shoulders of Riz Ahmed, and we are all standing on the shoulders of all the N number of people who've proven themselves. And you know what is interesting about you lot here is that you have a favorite Indian, South Asian creator, actor, musician already. You have made the switch where you're not ashamed. That's really it. Like Samay Raina individually made so many young Indians be completely okay with their weirdness. And that's what it really takes. I don't think articulating the pain beyond a certain point truly helps. I think it's a switch button, man. You see one good talk from one of these people and you're like, I want to be like Simi. And instantly your mind flips about all the things you thought were inferior before that. And so it's an example, lead by example thing for me. There might be other ways, but for me, that's what I really think. You wear and rock the Kolhapuri chappals at the Met Gala and then see the world turn. It's as simple as that. Diljit did that last time. He made the turban super cool. Suddenly, the one guy, even in India, made the turban super cool. So it's actually the example.
I think what you're trying to say, I'm going to reframe it. It's being proud of who you are and stop looking for validation. The day we stop doing that as a community, we always look for validation of the West, right? Because we feel like we're not important enough or what we care for is not important enough. The day we stop looking for validation from the West is the day we embrace who we are and the day we don't have to look for trends. Or feel either way. Kolhapuri chappals, yes or no, either way. I'm proud of them. I wore them as a student, I still wear them. It's like embracing your identity. To his point, Diljit has been wearing a turban ever since. He is authentic. The thing is, if he did something that was not authentic to him, we wouldn't have felt proud. We felt proud because he stood for what he has always believed in and how he has shown up in the media. I don't know if he wears a turban offline or not, but that's how he's always showed up and he's stayed true to that, and him being confident on that red carpet is what made us proud and feel that sense of accomplishment. So I think staying true to who you are, not looking for validation from people outside of you, but just sort of, staying grounding and looking for validation inside. It separates you from trends and who says it's a good trend or not, and they come up with a bag that looks like a, grocery bag. Doesn't matter. Do you like it or not? That's it.
And then I was going to say what we can do is then help support the things that are coming to market. So Anjula, Priyanka's manager, said, we are a large enough demographic and audience now to support our own art forms and things that are coming to market. So when Diljit sold out LA, I think everyone in that stadium was brown. He didn't need validation or tickets from anyone else, right? And I don't think we do that enough. So when Riz's show comes out on Amazon, I don't care if you don't have time, just put it on in the background because the KPIs matter, right? And we need to support those shows. We need to go buy something to support that Indian American designer, even if it's something small, or buy it and then gift it. I was buying tickets to Lily's movies and I couldn't go, but I wanted to buy the seats in the theaters, right? And we should be doing more of that.
And to wrap up today's conversation, it really comes down to support, right, Sean? Usually just support your own kind, and you can see how much we evolve together as a team, as a community. Doing this segment today was really about cohesiveness and about, we all are doing things in silo, right? But today was more about coming together as a community. Prakhar was the catalyst behind it, so I'm thankful that he was able to join us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anushka, Raj, Sean, Jasmine, Raju, and Simi, thank you guys for coming here today. I think this is the first of its kind of an event, and we hope to have many more. And from your feedback, do you guys think this is something you want to see more of? We'd like to know. Yes. So thank you all for coming today. I want to thank Kushi, she's back there. And of course, Chatti for hosting us today. And thank you all for coming again. Please, if you could take away something, follow all of us. Follow, support, follow, share, and we'd love to hear from you. Yeah, that's right. Thank you all.